One of our all-time favorite lessons comes from one of our dear mentors, Dr. Wayne Dyer. And this is all about what happens when you get squeezed.
Yes, squeezing oranges, getting orange juice. We promise there's more to it here. Stay tuned as we dive into this favorite story of ours.
Do you find yourself losing control of your scroll on social media?
If you do, then you want to stay tuned to join the Simply Social Club with Kay and I.
We've got an awesome challenge for you where you have the opportunity to detox from social media for 48 hours, 7 days, 14, or even 31 days right along Shyla and I.
So go to kayandshy.com/simplysocial and find out a little bit more, and hopefully you'll take a pledge alongside us. We'll see you in 2023.
See you in the club.
You're enjoying this episode on Angel Fenix Productions Podcast Network. To explore a complete lineup of quality programs and media production services, head on over to angelphoenix.com or like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Angel Fenix Productions.
We want you to go ahead and imagine that your human personality is, just for the sake of this exercise, akin to an orange.
An orange that is round and circular, and when you squeeze it, out comes orange juice. Okay, when I squeeze an orange, can I get apple juice?
No.
Okay, when I squeeze an orange, can I get cranberry juice?
Absolutely not.
Okay, when I squeeze an orange, can I get confetti?
Heck no.
Okay. Obviously, we're being silly here, but you get the point. When we squeeze an orange juice comes out. Why? Well, because that's what's inside, silly.
Right? So when you get squeezed by life, and as humans, we are infinitely more complex than oranges. We can get squeezed in an infinite amount of ways. The way that you react to the squeezing is really depending on the emotional state that's inside. Well, what you might not know is that the emotional state and that flavor of your juice is deeply driven by your identity. And oftentimes when we get squeezed enough to make us react, it's because we're getting squeezed in a way that rubs up against a piece of that identity and threatens it. So this is our opportunity to take a look at this orange, because if we paint the orange, does it change the juice inside?
No.
If we move the orange to a different location, does it change the juice inside?
It does not.
Shyla, if we peel the orange, does it change the juice inside?
No.
No, it does not. In fact, our podcast producer who is here said, so it's not just as easy as changing my name and getting a new identity. And we said, no, because you've got to work from the inside out.
Right. You can move the orange around, which is what so many of us resort to doing when we're first trying to solve our problems. Oh, I'm unhappy at work. I don't like it. I'm going to change my job. And you go to a new job and it's okay for a while and you get through the learning curve and you make some connections and friends, but you settle into a way of being there. And all of a sudden you're like, I don't like my job. And so you move. And again, the pattern plays out. Now, what's going on is that you've got something that when you get squeezed by the natural squeeze of work, what's coming out, you're not enjoying. So I love that you brought forward this idea, Kay, that like when you get squeezed, it bumps up against something of your identity. Now, the identity is going to determine the juice that comes out for that specific squeeze. And remember, there's an infinite amount of ways that we can get squeezed. So the juice that comes out for your identity when you get squeezed by getting cut off in traffic might sound like, that MFer, I can't believe that. How could you? Or it could sound like, ooh, I hope that they make it on time. I hope that they get there. They must be in a rush. All good. I'm still going to get there on time, right? But based on the identity is going to determine the juice that comes out for that experience. Now, why I'm belaboring that a little bit is because that infinite amount of ways that we can get squeezed. I mean, sometimes you get squeezed and you like your juice that comes out. You like the way that your identity responds to that. And sometimes you're not so proud and you don't love what comes out. And so it's not that it's the same juice, that it's always orange juice, but it's always you juice. It's always the identity juice that's coming out. And so there's the big aha about the orange teaching is then, okay, so if we want to make better juice, we construct an identity that's for the most part, going to give us good juice we like anytime it gets squeezed.
Remember that identity has all kinds of different dimensions to it, and those dimensions can end up showing up in different ways. Shyla said that the reaction depends on the experience that you have, the identity that's behind it, and the combination of those things. Let's just think about this. If I identify as a mama bear, which I absolutely do, am I going to treat my cubs differently than I'm going to treat the threat to my cubs? Absolutely. That identity in two different experiences produces a completely different type of reaction. And so understanding that this is infinitely layered when it comes to how your experience can play into how your identity can play into how your conditioning can play in. But don't worry, there's hope.
I am excited to get into that more with you. And I love the mama bear analogy. That is just so good. And do the cubs squeeze the mama bear, Kay?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Heck yeah. Sometimes mama bear's got to mama bear the cubs.
And sometimes what we would identify as a threat to the cub isn't even really a threat, but it feels like a squeeze because they're in our perimeter and we respond differently. So again, that infinite amount of ways that we can get squeezed, it all comes down to that keystone piece of identity, which we'll get to on the next minisode tomorrow.
This podcast was a production of Angel Phoenix Productions. Explore more episodes of this show or other great shows on the Angel Phoenix Podcast Network by visiting angelphoenix.com. The views expressed in this show do not necessarily represent those of Angel Phoenix Productions or its advertisers and may contain language that's unsuitable for younger listeners.